So I think we're live. Hello, everyone. This
Hello.
GS.
First episode of
Very excited. Hopefully we're online. Aleksander, great to see you.
I think there's some with the audio because we're really not hearing you that well.
So, maybe I can hear you.
Harry,
I'm hearing.
it's a problem on my end.
Oh, that's it.
Okay, let me try leaving and coming back in.
Okay, we're waiting for Aleksander to come back. Anyway, I'm just going to talk
Back?
a little bit.
Any,
By the way, do you mind, Harry, turning off your
by the way,
microphone?
Oh, yeah, okay.
When we start doing stuff. It's really clear. I just want to say where used first my and using JavaScript. We were see how we can and see to templates. We're going to go to okay. Yeah. Anyway, sorry for the connection. I had to change to the other one. I think we won't have any streaming problems. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Icon. Can you turn off
Yeah,
your mic?
I'm back.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, we're going to be extending our application. We're going to be adding some functionality in the next episodes. My idea is to kind of create a similar library to Angular using web components. And I don't know, just slowly developing something that might be interesting for you. And yeah, pretty much this is my idea. I'm going to let the other guys introduce themselves as well, and then we're just going to continue.
Who's going to start?
So hi, my name is Aleksander. I've been working. I work with Iliya and Harry. I think I muted my microphone again. So yeah, my name is Alex. I've been working with JavaScript for the past couple of years. JavaScript is great, and I've been working with these two for some time now. And we love making cool things using the latest available technologies.
And my name is Harry. My full name is Hristyan, but whatever. As you might already notice, we are all together in one room today. Although we are from separate machines. I'm also a fan of JavaScript, always doing the latest and greatest. So you know how it is with JavaScript. If you're part of commit.js, you're here because of that. And I'm very excited for our today's meetup because right now there's like a huge hype around the web components, and yeah, it's something that the web developer in 2019 must know. Like, so let's start today. I mean,
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm not used to this. I guess, yeah, we're using StreamYard, which is a really cool tool that allows us to collaborate and just share the screen, something that I found that it's not accessible otherwise. So at a certain point, if this show develops, we're just going to buy a paid account. But for now, we're using the free version, and that's why you see the logo up there. But anyways, I think that it's pretty okay for now. I'm going to start by creating a simple file called index.js and just a page index.html. By the way, if anyone has any questions, you can post them online on the chats in YouTube, I think. And we're probably going to be able to see them here. I'm not sure if does anyone have YouTube open? You can try typing something because I'm not sure. Probably we're going to see it, but anyways. So here I'm going to create an HTML5 page. And what I'm going to do is just create a script tag so we can get our script that I put there. Come on. Okay, it's very early in the morning, so I cannot type. Okay,
it's totally
index.js. So we're not going to use a development server for now. I'm just going to use the file protocol, so I can include this file, and I'm going to view it inside the browser. Let me just quickly open it. I'm going to open the directory and just open it from there inside Chrome, and hopefully we're going to be able to see it. Okay. Here is our application. We don't have anything currently. Hopefully the file is there. Let's see, console.log1. And if we refresh the page, we see the one down there. So everything's perfect. So
is that a web component?
No, this is not yet a web component. So what are actually web components? The idea of web components is to write kind of isolated components from each other. It basically brings the component-based software architecture into the web. And it was like first, I think, introduced in 2011. So if this is correct, then it is introduced before React and Angular and stuff like that. So this is one of the reasons why actually, because we have this course in university, in software university that we teach, and this year we decided to kind of drop the frameworks, or at least just mention certain things instead of teaching them all, because they're kind of more complicated, and that we're going to focus on creating web components just because they're very similar to how you actually develop components with the other frameworks. And I think this is a really good episode that people who are from our university in the advanced JavaScript course, it's going to be very helpful for them, just because they're going to be teaching about web components very soon. And yeah, they're going to be prepared. So web components is just like a bunch of things. First is the custom elements. This is an API that browsers provide for us to create custom tags and associate with these tags classes. And whenever this tag, for example, appears in the HTML, the browser instantiates a class from the one that you provided, and pretty much attaches a logic into to this component. Yeah, something's ringing. One other thing are the templates, the HTML template tags that you can put inside your HTML. These are tags that are actually parsed by the browser once, and they're very efficient whenever you're creating multiple components, because the browser already parsed this DOM, and it just reuses this logic. That's why they're called templates, and actually they're used by Vue.js to create the templates for the Vue.js components. And the other thing is the shadow DOM. This is the structure that isolates this unique component from the other elements from the DOM. And this shadow DOM is the more complex thing, but it pretty much just isolates our events and our styles from the other part from the other part of the HTML, and this is really cool because we can write really simple selectors when we're creating CSS or just our elements in the HTML, and we're not going to have any conflicts with the other styles inside the page. So yeah, let's start. First, I'm just going to create a simple class. I'm just going to call it app. And the first thing, we have to extend the HTML element. How was it? HTML element. I think it was like that. Okay. Is it? I think, I'm not sure about that. Just because in Angular is with camel case, but here I'm not sure if it's like that. But anyways. So then we're going to use the custom elements, and we're going to say define. We want to define custom elements. Define. Come on, man. I think something, I don't know, Visual Studio is acting really strange lately. I'm not sure why. So I'm going to say that for this tag that is going to be HG app, I want to have this class, and pretty much this is all. Now, if we create a constructor in this class, we're going to hopefully see that it's constructed. And what I have to do is just get this HTML tag. By the way, here's I have to mention that if you want to have a custom element, it needs to have a dash inside the tag that you're putting it, that you're creating for it. So here, if I come and just create this tag, hopefully we're going to see constructed. If not, then something went wrong. And yeah, pretty much we see it here, and we see an error that we have to call super whenever you are having a constructor, but this is something that we're going to do now. Okay, so this is the first part. We just defined our custom element, and now we have to create our template. So creating templates, it's not very hard. We can do it either here inside the HTML and just put a unique ID and then use the document get element by ID to get it, or we can construct it inside our JavaScript. So I'm just going to create a simple function. I'm going to call it HTML. I'm going to call it HTML just because with lit HTML, you have this function exactly the same that pretty much creates a template. And here I'm actually going to use how do we call the tag functions. I'm going to mimic the interface, and pretty much it looks like this. And whenever you install this plugin, it's called, I think, lit HTML plugin for Visual Studio Code. You basically get this HTML syntax highlighting here, and it's more pretty. So let's first see what these functions are and how they work. They're pretty interesting. So I'm not sure if you ever seen something like this, but the tag functions, I was very surprised when I saw them for the first time. But like they're not very hard. The first part that actually the HTML tag function accepts is, I think it's called strings. So first we get all the strings that are the static parts inside our template, and usually we can have something like this, which is kind of dynamic, so it needs to be calculated, and we can have more expressions like this, not only one. So here we can take them as second argument. So these are going to be the expressions that need to be calculated. And this is one of the functions that actually lit HTML uses to generate their strings. And it's pretty interesting. Probably we're going to do an episode where we're kind of creating a deep dive into lit HTML and how they're parsing the templates and stuff like that. But I just want to keep it simple for now.
Sorry for interrupting, but can you remind me what was lit HTML? Because I'm sure some of the people on the stream probably hear this for the first time.
Yes, sure. So lit HTML, it's a library that it's developed by Polymer. Polymer is a really big framework for developing web components, and it's developed by Google. But lit HTML is a very simple library for creating templates for web components. And pretty much it uses the tag templates functions and the template literals. And it really looks like JSX. The only difference is that like JSX, hopefully you know what JSX is. It's like the React library that creates their templates as well. But with JSX, you have a different step of compiling, and here we don't have any compilation. It just gets parsed to, I mean, it just creates the HTML. And it's really, really efficient. I mean, compared to what React is doing with the VDOM, lit HTML is it's more efficient in certain scenarios. But anyways, this is another topic. Harry, is this okay for introduction to lit HTML, or you still don't
understand what it is?
I think that's perfectly sufficient.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Okay, let's continue. So here what we're going to do is we're going to get all of our strings. Let's first see what we're going to get. So I'm going to do a console log, strs and expressions. Okay, no, not this.
Almost.
And let me just quickly comment this and see what we are going to get. I'm going to refresh. As you can see, we get the different types of different strings. These are the static parts. And on the other side, we get all the expressions, which are, I'm not sure why it's not visible. It had to be there.
Expression.
It should be, but am I not?
I think you're just collapsing the wrong element. Can you open the console again?
Okay, let me just refresh.
Okay, you see the second element that's logged is the 8 over there, and on the right.
Yeah, but it should be like it should be. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. I just got confused because yeah. So this is the 8. This is the 4 plus 4 that we're just calculating here. And this is like the really cool thing about lit HTML, because it can actually extract the different dynamic parts, and it knows where these dynamic parts are. So whenever there are changes, it exactly knows where it has to make the change. Instead of like if you're using React with the VDOM, you have to create this whole tree, the new tree, and just compare it to the old one and see where the changes are and do the modifications. So this is where lit HTML, for example, is really quick. But anyways, I'm not going to do something complicated. I'm just going to do something like this. I'm going to use my favorite reduce function. And I'm just going to say something like reduce strs, acc, current, and I'm going to append the current. No, current is the, okay. Something like this. But in between, I want to put the expression if there is any. Okay, I'm just going to do it in a couple of lines, so it's not very complicated for you guys. I'm going to say const result equals this. And for the expressions, I'm going to use the index and just get from the expressions the one for the current index. And also, I want to check if this actually exists. Like this, and just say if this exists, I want to add it. Come on. With the refactoring. Okay, result. So this needs to be a let. Current expression, result, something like this. Okay. And then we're going to return the results. Okay, and let's see what is going to happen. And the other thing, I have to return it, of course, and I have to say that I'm going to have this empty string. And now we're just probably going to, I have to log it here. So I'm going to say const template equals this thing, console.log template. And hopefully we're going to see exactly what we've written. So now what we only have to do is wrap this thing that we're returning into a template tag. So I'm going to say const HTML equals this thing, and I'm going to say return and something like template. template, and inside I'm just going to use the HTML. And hopefully we're going to have kind of a template. Not exactly, because what I want to be doing here is use the document document.create element. And I'm going to use the template like this.
Yeah,
Okay,
and the reason we're using the actual template tag is because I didn't think that, I'm not sure if we mentioned that that the template tag is what is going to be the actual web component is going to be displaying.
Yeah, this is going to be the DOM of our HTML, of our web component. Yeah, exactly. So hopefully here we're going to see a template, and inside the template we're going to see our document fragment, which is going to be our template. So this is the function that we're going to be using. And now let's create our first template. And of course use the our first shadow DOM. Okay, I'm going to say const app template equals HTML. With this thing, I'm going to say, of course, okay, hello commit.js. And now, how should we display this template is our custom component. So first we have to create the placeholder where we're actually going to be storing this template. We use this by saying this.attach shadow. Pretty much this creates our shadow DOM, and here we have the option to say what kind of mode do we want. For example, there are two types of options. The mode to be open, which means that whenever we access this component from our JavaScript, we are able to use, or how should I say, yeah, to manage or to kind of make modifications to our virtual DOM from outside. And there is like a closed option, which kind of locks the shadow DOM, and we cannot access it from outside, only from inside of our component if we maintain the reference. So I'm just going to say here closed, and I'm just going to say root, something like this. And here inside the root, what I want to do is create root.append child, or something like that. And I want to use my app template, and I'm going to say content, because I don't want to basically create a template tag inside the shadow root. I want to get the content, which is going to be this part, and just basically put it inside our shadow root. And I'm going to say clone, because I want to basically clone it. This is the way that you actually use the templates, and this is the way that we're going to be doing it for now. But further, like in the next episode, we're going to, for example, maybe integrate TypeScript with our application and use, for example, decorators, and this is going to be done manually. So not manually, automatically. So yeah, just for now, this is how we're going to use it. And let's see if this is going to work. If we refresh, clone is not a function. Okay, let me just see. I think that it was not contain, it was condense or something like that. Maybe no. Okay, let me just put a quick breakpoint to see what it is, because I forgot. So we have the template. We're going to say app template.content. Okay, and then we have clone node. Okay. Clone node, and hopefully now we're going to defined, yeah, content. Okay, and hopefully now, no, it's not working.
Now
It should be working. Let me just see. We have the root, right? Let's see what the root is, the document fragment. And we have append child. Okay, and then we have the template content clone node, which should give us the HTML. Okay, we have.
It's closed. It's
okay. We have to give it through here, just because we have to deeply copy it. That's why. Okay. If you don't give true, it basically copies only the top element, and the top element is this document fragment. And just because we want the other parts, we give it the true here. So it's a deep copy, pretty much. Okay, so we created our first web component. As you see, we have the shadow root, which means that this DOM here is isolated from the DOM that we have inside, from the other part of the DOM that we have inside our application. And we can start creating stuff. Any questions?
Okay. It looks so simple that I'm wondering right now why I haven't done that since 2011. I mean, like, so straightforward. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The problem is that web components and these parts are still kind of being built, and I mean there are certain complications with them because with, for example, libraries like React or Angular, you can do things really fast, and here certain things are kind of harder. But we're going to see this while we're working on our application. So next thing, let's create something dynamic here, so we can actually kind of do something more interesting. I'm going to create another function. It's going to be something like get app template, and here I'm just going to say I want to get the data. So this is going to be all of my dynamic parts, or not data, let's say context. And here inside this part, I'm just going to be using this context and just getting certain parts from my app. So here I'm going to say something like commit.js, let's say counter. And here I'm going to say context dot counter, something like that. And let me just quickly think of how we're going to actually be doing this. Okay, so here I'm going to call this function get app template. I'm going to say this dot counter, which is going to return the template tag. Okay, now we have to create the counter, and I'm going to say that it's going to be 0. So hopefully it's not showing. Let me just see. Oh, it should be like this, or maybe I should just give this object. So yeah, why it's not working? It should be context counter. Should be working. That's strange. Okay, let's try this. Maybe. If it's not working like this, it's going to be really strange. Why it's not working? Something that I did wrong. Maybe it's here. Oh yeah. This expression here is really tricky because it actually checks to see if this is a false value, and currently the 0 is a false value, so that's why it's depending it. So what we have to do is say something like equals undefined, and then we're just going to be seeing the 0, different from undefined. Sorry. Okay, here's the counter. And now what we have to do is provide this here. Okay, and everything should be fine. So let's create 2 buttons, or at least one. We're going to say increment. Okay. Okay, increment. I'm going to give it an ID. Button. So how are we going to get this button? It's really easy. Since it's in our shadow root, we can do the exact operation that we can do on our DOM and say get element by ID. And I'm just going to say inc button like this. And I'm going to say inc button dot add event listener. And I'm going to say whenever somebody clicks, I want to call this function that is going to increment our counter. So I'm going to say counter plus plus, and here is where things kind of gets more annoying because we're going to upgrade the counter, we're going to increment it, but what we have to do is manage the update on our template. So here's where we are going to probably have some function that just does the updating. So let's say const update template. And we're going to say we're going to take the updates, and this update is going to be an object. The object is going to be like, for example, query selector, and the updated value or something. Let me just see if this is going to work. Yeah, it will work. Just what we have to do is create a span here and just give it a proper ID and say this is going to be our counter. Okay, and let's do it for, this is going to be an array as well. So yeah, let's do it like this. And we're going to say updates for each update, or I'm just going to use the destructuring. Let me see, this is going to be an object. So let me see if we can kind of do it a little bit better than this. It's not going to be an array. It's going to be actually an object with different query selectors. So they have to be unique anyways. I don't see why you want to be updating the same element twice. So what we're going to do is use object.entities, which is going to give us the entities of this template. Then we're going to use for each. And here I'm just going to get the selector and the new value. And what I'm going to also need is the DOM, or yeah, the root, let's say root. And I'm going to say root query selector. I'm going to use the selector to get the element, and then I'm going to say if the element doesn't exist, I want to return. If it exists, I want to say inner HTML equals value. Okay. So let's use this thing. Let's just create a factory for it, update template factory. And I'm here going to get the root, which is going to return another function that is going to be used for the updates. And here what we can do is just link this factory to our component by using something like this dot underscore update equals use update template factory. Oops. And then I'm going to create it with the root. And then all I have to do is pretty much call here this dot update, and here I have to do the updates. So the query is going to be hashtag counter equals this dot counter. And let's see if this is going to work. Okay, and basically it works. So really cool. Our first web component, and it's kind of dynamic. So you can see why web components are still not very nice to use when you're building big applications, just because we have to manually write these things. And this is where lit-HTML comes and really helps you by giving you this functionality out of the box. So lit-HTML is a super small library just for creating the templates. And yeah, it basically lets you be more efficient at what we currently are doing, and things are much easier. Any comments, guys?
Well, I see that how this can be a bit confusing for some people because of the lot of things that you have to manage. But as you said, as you just said, lit-HTML makes this whole thing a whole lot easier. And the real benefit of this is that when you can find custom elements, you can reuse your code, and it makes the DOM tree a lot more intelligible, easy to read. So elements are custom elements are great.
Yeah, I really like them as well. So we can kind of optimize our code a little bit by, for example, creating a setter for our counter and saying something like this. Whenever we want, we're going to say counter equals value, something like this, and then we're going to say getter counter, which is going to return this thing, which is the counter underscore counter. And here we can actually put this part where we're updating the thing right here. And this is going to be much easier, but only, yeah, I think this is going to be much better, just because what we only need to do is just increment the counter and we're going to automatically get the update there. So I think let's just spread our things a little bit, something like this. Let's see if it's going to work. This update is not a function, just because whenever we're setting the counter first, the update doesn't exist, so we have to move it here after the update somewhere, like that. And yeah, everything's working perfectly now, and yeah, much better having this here. Okay, so what else should we do? Let's define some styles for our components to see how this is done. So whenever you're defining styles, you can put them here. So we can have style and just say we're going to have some background for our component or just anything you like. How should we call this container? Yeah, something like this. And we're going to say hashtag counter container. The other cool part is that you can only use IDs. It doesn't matter, since as long as they're unique for your components, it's not going to kind of conflict with any other IDs on your page, just because we have this shallow DOM that it's isolated. So it's really cool. And we're going to say color green. And yeah, the color is green. This is really cool because here we are using a get template function, which means that, for example, if we want to be sharing styles, we can, for example, just put them inside some variable, something like const shared styles equals something like style button. Color red style, or we don't even need the style tag, but anyways, let's just do it like that. And then we can say, for example, whenever we're using the get template, we can say, for example, styles or something like that. Which is going to be an array, and if it doesn't exist, it's just going to be an empty array. And here what we can do is something like spread this styles array, something like that. It should work, or no? I cannot spread it. It should be a string actually. So yeah, it should be like that. Maybe join with the empty. Yeah. So here we can, for example, say that we want to share some styles. Here, whenever we're creating our factory, we can do something like that. Shared styles inside an array, and it should probably work. I'm not sure why it's not working. Let's see. It's not imported for some reason. I'm not maybe doing it correctly. Let's see what I'm missing. I have this thing, style button red. Okay.
You add them to the.
I added it here. Oh no, this is the update. It's not the correct function. We have to. It's for our template.
Yeah,
here.
Right there.
Yep. And yeah, now we shared our style, and this is really cool. Yeah, it works, and you can share it between multiple components and stuff like that. Something that it's a little bit harder whenever you're using other libraries. For example, mostly with Angular, I think. With React, it's easy because you don't have any encapsulation, and this is something that I really don't. I mean, you can use a library that kind of encapsulates things, but this is something that I think it should be out of the box whenever you're using component-based frameworks. But anyways, this doesn't mean that I don't like React. I really like it because it's very functional.
Harry
dropped off. He was very excited to say something, and he just clicked the X button. Okay, while he's okay, let me just put him back in. Hello, Harry. So,
I have a question about this thing with styles. I mean, it's great that we can do that, but should we do that all the time? I mean, like, one of the things that the haters, let's say haters of the web components, are saying is like, you must not put all that style in your JavaScript. You must ship as little JavaScript as possible. I mean, it's like there are a rule of thumb that you follow when you put CSS in the JavaScript, or I mean, like, what are you doing? I mean, because it's kind of expensive to pass all the JavaScript. I mean, like, to even pass all the CSS of JavaScript, and yeah, I mean, like, this might be a bottleneck if you're doing like a huge application, all your style is in your JavaScript, and it takes time to be parsed and stuff. You get the point. What's your opinion?
So my opinion here is that the cool thing is that we're actually doing a template here. So it actually is going to get parsed once. So whenever you're creating multiple components from this one, for example, if you're using an array and you're just iterating over elements and just creating components, this is going to be very fast. And the other thing is inline styles like this one. They're not very bad. I mean, certain people, they probably will say, okay, why are we writing these styles inside our JavaScript and stuff like this? But the main point is that we're doing less requests. For example, if you want your application to be very fast, usually you're even inlining your images, you're inlining your styles just because you don't want to have multiple requests and you want everything to load at once. So I don't think that it's a bad idea doing it like this. But anyways, whenever we introduce Webpack, for example, what we can do here is, for example, say import and just say some string, and this can be an external, for example, CSS file. And yeah, pretty much we can do a bunch of things. But for now, I think that it's okay. The main point here is to see how we can actually reshare some certain theme that we have for our application or something like that, just by using the strings. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, there's a way to solve the CSS and JavaScript issue, but the benefits of the whole thing is that each component is encapsulated in its own shadow DOM, and you can just throw the styles around everywhere. And the simple style is this, which is button color red. Normally, if you put that on your project, it will apply to all of the buttons. But since every web component has its own shadow DOM, it will just work for it, and this solves a lot of issues.
Yep. So sure, nice for Foster me, like going the questions that are biting. Just joking, just messing around.
Okay, see this button? It's not red, just because we're only applying the style inside our shadow DOM here. So yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so what should we do next? Any ideas, guys? Do you want to do something? By the way, while we're talking about styles, I mean, we're mostly going to talk about JavaScript, but let's say a few things about styles and web components. You actually have a really cool selectors for CSS selectors when you're using web components. For example, you can query to see actually what is the parent of your web component. And for example, if it's an inline element, you can position your web component in a certain way, and you have all this functionality that it's really cool that comes out from the box whenever you're using web components. For example, I can use, if I want to style my host element, which is, for example, this web component, the HG app, I can use the double column host and stuff like that. This is something that it's familiar to the people who are writing Angular. So yeah, this is they have really cool tags. Not tags, really cool selectors, CSS selectors for the web components that can make things easier for you to style your component depending on the environment that it's in, or yeah, depending on the parent. So yeah, it's really cool. Okay, let's create another web component and just use it inside the existing one. Or yeah, we're going to do this. Okay, let's do it. So I'm just going to create another class. I'm going to say what should we put? Let's say test, for example. I don't know. Implement extends HTML element. And here I'm just going to use the constructor to create a template. Let's copy this thing. Use it here. Okay, let's just say that we have an H1. Say hello, something like that. I just want to see how to show you how you can actually create different ways of that you have for creating web components. So here we're going to say something like this. Yeah, we don't need the update, so I'm just going to use this. Get test template. I'm going to use it here. I don't need the shared styles. I don't have any buttons. And I'm going to close the node. This I think is going to be. We have to say attach shadow mode closed. Okay. This is going to be root, something like that. And the other part that we need to do is say custom elements. I'm just going to copy it since Visual Studio is really slow today. And I'm going to say hg test. And I'm going to say that I'm going to use this class. So everything's fine now. If I include this tag, for example, here inside the template of my app component, I should actually see my app, my other component. Let's see. See, hello, this is not red, I'm going to remove it. So this is the way that we can actually use another web component inside an already existing component by just putting it inside the HTML, or yeah, we can put it inside the global HTML as well. You can decide. And another way that you can actually do it is create it dynamically. So for example, if this, oops, should be like that. Oh no, okay, yeah. I thought that I made a mistake, but everything's fine. This is the problem whenever you're writing everything inside a single file. So yeah, it's not good. But for now, I think it's okay. So another way that you can actually create a web component, there is like this functionality, custom elements get, and you can get the constructor for a certain element, for example, hg root. And this is if you hg app, and this is the way that you can actually get the constructor, for example, for our app custom element by just introducing the tag. This is useful whenever you don't have a reference to the class, but you know that this component exists and you just want to create one. So let's see how we can actually create a web component like this. It's really cool because you can actually create, you can use dependency injection and just pass certain things inside the constructor of this component. I'm going to say stuff here, and inside here, I'm going to say console.stuff. So whenever the browser creates this thing, you cannot pass things inside the constructor, but then whenever you create it inside your application, for example, here somewhere inside, let's say whenever we click the button, we want to create this component, and we can say, of course, they're in one file now, but I'm not sure if I can use it like this, just because tests. No, I will be able, since this is going to be asynchronous operation, so it's going to happen after this class is instantiated. But usually classes in JavaScript, they're not hoisted like variables are. So whenever you're doing synchronous code and you're using a class before it's defined, it's going to give an error. But anyways, let's use this API that I showed you. Let's say custom elements dot get, and we're going to say, for example, app hg test. And I'm going to say my, for example, test ctr. Oh, come on, okay. And here I can do something like const my test equals new test ctr. I'm going to say hello, or okay, some args like that. And then what I can do is say root dot append child, and I can say my test. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Let me just delete it from our template for now, so we don't get confused. Where did I delete it? Maybe I did. Okay, it's deleted. And whenever we add, whenever we click the button, we see that the component is rendered. And here inside the console, we can actually see the arguments that we passed to our component, which is very cool. This is actually the way that, for example, Angular Elements is using web components, because I'm not sure if you know, but whenever you're doing Angular, creating Angular applications and Angular components, you have this thing called Angular Elements, and this is a tool that allows you to export your Angular components into web components. And this is a really cool feature because you can actually use these components that you've written in Angular in every JavaScript application, no matter if it's React or Vue or whatever. And yeah, this is the way that they're actually doing their dependency injection. And this is the way that we are going to be doing dependency injection ourselves. But yeah, this is really cool as well. So any questions on this? Guys, what do you think about it? Cool, right?
Oh, it definitely is. Harry was too eager to ask another question. He dropped out again.
Yeah, Harry's a dropout.
Yeah, so the way that you can create this and have access to the constructor is just really great. And another thing that I think we should mention is how to handle slots. And
yeah, slots are really cool.
That is if Harry after Harry asks his eager question.
I was eager to ask about the slots. I mean, like, because we have mentioned Angular, and one of the greatest things, at least for me in Angular, is the injecting of context inside another component that's injected in another component, and you get the feeling of composing stuff. And I think that this feature is really nice, as Aleksander mentioned. So
yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're going to next see how we can do content projection. This is how it's called in Angular. Pretty much, basically, whenever you have a component, let me just go here. Whenever you have your components inside the HTML, for example, here, and whenever you put something inside, you want this thing to be presented, and this is how it's done. It's done with using slots. So let's say that we have this text here, some wonderful text, and we want to present it to the user. Whenever we refresh, you see that it's not visible just because we haven't said where exactly we want this thing to be put. So what we can do here is, for example, go inside our template, the app template, and we can just use a slot. This is, I think it's like this. I haven't written it for a while. This is a global slot. It means that it will capture all the things inside between the two tags of your component and just going to present it there. And yeah, as you see, it's working. This means that we can you can think of it as composition of components or just DOM and stuff like that, just because we are getting this thing from outside and injecting it inside, and we can then inject it more inside and stuff like that. So inside other components that are in our current component. So yeah, it's really cool. And there are also named slots. The named slots are really cool as well, because you can, for example, say name, and you can say, okay, I want to get I think here you must put a CSS selector, something like test. And whenever I refresh, we don't see this text. But if I go here and I say, okay, I have this span with class test, and I want this text to be inside, then this slot, the name slot, is going to probably present it. Maybe I made a mistake here. Is it name? I think that it was name. Let's see.
I'm not sure.
Oof, I don't know. Okay, slot is not the correct word. They have to create a Google just for developers, you know. I mean, okay, slot.
You can find a lot of views.
Components.
You must use slot on both places. I mean, like in the HTML and in the element.
Are you sure? I'm not very sure about this. Here, slot name attributes, and here we have. Where is the attributes? Slot. Okay. No, this is not the one that I want. I don't think that we have to use it in both places, actually. I'm not sure about this.
Maybe we do. I'm not sure. Let's check.
Yep.
The last example seemed like
okay. My text. Okay. I have to use slot as an attribute. Probably this is what Harry wanted to say. So here I will say not class. I'm going to say slot test, and probably it will work now. Okay. Cool. I got it wrong just because in Angular you have this thing that is very similar to slots. It's called ng content, and with the ng content you can actually have, for example, a select attribute that you can actually put a CSS tag, and it searches for this CSS tag inside the content of our web component. So these are the slots. They're really cool. And you can have multiple.
Sorry. Good thing about them is that the thing to consider is that whatever you place in a slot, it won't get rendered. It won't get created until you've actually displayed it in the actual web component. So if the fact that you can put a lot of HTML inside the actual web component, and it won't get rendered and won't get attached to the DOM until you've actually shown it in the web component, or the web component has been created.
And you can also, for example, do a conditional statement, something like that you would do if you want in React. You can say something like, if context counter is larger than 2, then I want to, for example, display this thing. I think that, oops, I think it should work. Some wonderful text is the only one that it's showing right now.
It's only showing that.
Oh, okay. I have to put it inside this thing, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it starts working. Okay. We're using we're seeing the false right now, so we don't want to see this. Probably we want to do something like empty string. Yep, empty string is going to be the one that we want. And it's not working again, sadly. Why it's not working? It should be working. Context counter larger than 2 if we want to display this thing. Context counter. It should. Oh, okay. I see why. We actually this is static. So we're calling this only one time, and here we're. I mean, we're not changing it, right? This thing it creates us a reference, and then we're using it inside our constructor here to get the reference. But whenever we are updating the counter, we're not saying that we want to get a new template. So this is something that we have to, for example, do inside our update function, pretty much. So this is kind of annoying, and this is something that you would expect from a template, but currently the one that we developed, it's not going to work. But this is a thing that you can actually do currently. I mean, you can put conditionals and conditionally render something, but I'm just going to skip this for now. Whenever we start using lit HTML, it's going to be working. But for now, we have this update function that we're using to do our updates. The other way to do it is just create a new template each time. Yeah, why not? Let's do this, for example. I'm just going to comment this then, the updates, and here instead of updates, I'm just going to create a new one. I'm going to say this dot update. Since using this template, it's fast, I think that it should be convenient to just update the things since the template is already constructed. Let me just see where it actually is. Get template, we're creating the template like this. Let me just think of something because I really don't like it. I mean, creating this thing again is not going to be very nice because we're creating a separate template tag.
That's not the best solution.
Okay. I think that we should skip this for now. I mean, it's not the best thing to the best place to use this right now. So yeah, but this is something that Aleksander wants to say, I think. Just that you can do conditionals on the slots and just manipulate them in any way that you want, right?
Yeah, and the fact that it's on the root of the actual our document page, the content that you put in the actual web component won't get rendered until it's actually being used. So you can put a lot of content in what it won't be a load for the actual document. But a thing to consider is that if for instance you have a script tag or a link or loading some style inside the actual web component, I think that it'll still load make the remote request and load the resources even if our web component hasn't been created.
I can confirm that. I mean, I also read that recently.
Okay, cool. This is nice and good information. So another thing that it should be true is if I put, for example, a style here, and I say, okay, I have this slot. I'm going to say ID my slot. If I do a style here, it should be able to put some styles just because it's here inside this DOM. And we're passing it to our component, but it actually comes from inside. So we can actually style things this way from outside. Let's see. This is something that, for example, works in Angular. I'm not sure. Probably it will work here. Let's say, for example, color yellow. And it should make the color yellow. We are not presenting it, by the way. I've deleted it. Okay, let's just put it back. Okay, like that. Should be name, name is okay. Okay, and you can see, oof, what an idea. Okay, let's say orange.
Yes. I didn't expect this to work.
No, it's a proper way to be working. Just because if you notice where actually the slots are being put, they're not inside our shadow DOM, or they shouldn't be. Yeah, you can see that they're outside the shadow root just because they should be working this way, because the HTML is coming from outside and all the styles and everything that it's connected to this slot, it should be there. Even if you have, for example, click handlers and stuff like that, they're also not going to be removed, and you can actually attach them. So yeah.
That really makes sense.
The scientific explanation for this is that the slots are actually in the wide DOM of the shadow DOM. I mean, like the term is whatever, just trivia.
Okay, cool. We're already like streaming for an hour, I think. Should we continue, or should we leave the lit HTML for another episode? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that the lit HTML is proper to be left in another episode and have a whole episode dedicated to itself, because there's.
Okay, so we're not.
I think that one thing that's also interesting and is very useful is to look at the actual ways that we can know when our component has been attached or removed.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to examine a few more things about web components, for example, to see how we actually can dispatch custom events and how we can monitor certain attributes if they changed and stuff like that. So yeah, we're going to look into the lifecycle methods of the web components. This is something very similar to what you have in React and in Angular as well. And we're going to see how we can dispatch different events, and then we're going to close the show. Time is flying, so yeah. We're not going to cover the lit HTML today, but in the next episode, maybe next Sunday or Saturday, I don't know, we can look into lit HTML. That it's really cool. Okay, so let's start with the lifecycle methods. So if you go here and say custom elements lifecycle, probably, yeah, you're going to see the different callbacks that you can use. No, oh, there it is. So we have the connected callback, we have the disconnected callback, we also have adopted callback, and we have the attributes changed callback. So these are the lifecycle methods that we can use inside our components. Let's use the connected callback. So let's say here, for example, I'm going to say whenever you connect, I want to, for example, log something. For example, get HTTP data or something like that, or get data. This HTTP data is very strange. Okay, and whenever I, for example, refresh the page, if we increment the counter, we see get data. And this is really cool because we can actually create our component here. For example, I'm creating it, but we may not, for example, attach it to the DOM right away. And this is why we have this connected callback, and this is the proper way, the correct place to actually, for example, call some HTTP service to get data and just render it. We can actually do this. I really like using the JSON placeholder API. And for example, here we can get some posts, for example, these ones, and do something like fetch this thing, and then get the response and response.json to get the posts. Inside of then we're going to have the posts. And let's see how we can actually render these posts. So here inside the test, I'm going to say I'm going to have like a UL, which is going to be for my posts. Let's say posts, any post list, something like that. And here I'm going to say something like this post list equals, I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it, since we're going to allow the users to get these posts, which is not something that I would like. By the way, let's see if creating private properties, it's something that is supported in Chrome. I'm not sure how, if you guys know, but you can actually create private properties with the hashtag. Yeah, it's really interesting. Let's see how, sorry, is it working? Or no?
No, the more you know. It's I haven't. It's the first time I see this.
Let's see if it's going to be working in Chrome. I'm not sure how you must define them. Okay, it's not like this. Let's see, private. Let's see, fields, class fields. With the hashtag, you can define like message something, and you can access it like this and modify it. But I guess it's still not supported in Chrome, and I'm not sure. Let's see if I do it here. 1, 2, 3. Is it going to work or not? Oh, it's working actually. I don't have an error. That's cool. Okay. That means that I'm going to have this private property that is going to be to do or post list element, and I'm going to say it's equal to no. Then I'm going to say this post list element equals root get element by ID, and then I'm going to say.
Yeah, you have a typo in the code. So no. I think that the hashtag has to be in front of the this.
Really? No, it's after the this.
It's very strange. The actual autocorrect confused me because within this hashtag and it's updated. Yeah.
Currently, the autocorrect in Visual Studio Code is really acting super strange. I'm not sure with the last update. I'm really unhappy with Visual Studio Code. I'm waiting for the next update. It's very annoying. But anyways, what we want to do here is to see if we actually have this hashtag post list element. Oh, come on, man. Sheesh. Okay. Yep, there it is. There it is. It's super cool. And this means that nobody can actually get this element. We can only use it inside our class. Okay, so here on the connected callback, the reason I'm doing this is because we have the closed shadow DOM, and I don't want to be exposing any elements from this shadow DOM. If I want to, it's not necessary to do this way, and it's not necessary for even to have it closed. If you have it open, by the way, here, inside here, you can actually use, for example, this dot shadow DOM dot root dot append element and stuff like that. But anyways, I really want to, like, whenever I'm developing web components, it's not very often, by the way, I always put them with close just because I don't want people to be messing around with the things that I have inside.
So it's the better option to have it closed. Yeah. It's okay to keep it open while we're developing it, and if it's in development, but after that, it should be closed.
Yeah, I think so. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the post list element, and I'm going to say const eli element document dot create element li. Then I'm going to say li element inner HTML equals post. Oh, this is something that I have to do it inside the posts for each, for example, like this. Okay, oops. And inside here, I'm going to say post.title, and I'm going to say append child with the.
Harry, your microphone is off, and we can't really hear you.
All right, you can type with the hashtag.
I don't see anything.
Oh, all right.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, man. Okay, so let's see if we're going to be able to see our posts. By the way, probably it's going to be a good idea to, for example, put something like loading here, even though it's not semantically correct. I wouldn't do this, but anyways, I think for the demo it's going to be okay. Oops, it didn't get removed. I thought that it's going to get removed after that. Okay, so we're just going to skip this. So yeah, whenever we add something, we actually see the request going there, and we actually see all the posts being rendered. So this is something that is really cool. And we also have the, for example, disconnected callback. And the disconnected callback is used whenever you want to clear up something. For example, if you have, like, for example, a set interval here, you can, for example, save the interval ID and then clear it here, so you don't have any memory leaks. The same thing with the fetch. The fetch actually, you can provide it. Actually, you can create a controller. You can provide the fetch, and whenever, like, this component gets destructed, if the fetch is not it's not finished, you can actually cancel it. So it's really cool. This is the disconnected, by the way, disconnected callback. Log component was removed. Okay, these are the basic lifecycle hooks. What we want now is to be able to get notified whenever certain attribute gets changed, and this is something that we can do with the attribute has changed callback. This is this one. So here we're going to have a few values. I think here's first is the name, then we have the old value, and then we have the new value. And one other thing, that whenever you put this lifecycle hook, don't forget to create this property called observed attributes. It needs to be a static property on, inside your custom component. Something like this static, it can be actually a getter. And what you're returning here is an array with all the attributes that you want to get observed. So for example, here inside the test, if I say, for example, what kind of attribute, data ID or something like that. Whenever the data ID changes, I want to get notified, and I'm just going to end up in this lifecycle hook. And let's say console log, name, old value, new value. And how are we going to change this? For example, we can do it here. Let's say we're going to use a set timeout. And inside this timeout, I'm actually going to change it.
Didn't you add the? Are you working in two different components right now? Because you added.
But I'm creating the test component here, and that's why I want to change the attribute. Is it okay? Okay. So inside my test, I want to say my test set attribute and data ID. I want to change it to something like that, and after 5 seconds, so we can actually see that we're getting the notification, and maybe it will work, hopefully. So we're adding the elements, and here probably, I hope that I didn't clean it up. Oops, set attribute is not a function. What is my test? Maybe it's not the correct thing. My test. My test, it should have a set attribute. Why is not? Okay, let's have a debugger there so we can see what we actually can do. Okay, increment. Okay, my test. Set attribute. I haven't spelled it correctly. Okay. Or I have? Why is it saying that it's not a function? We can see that it is a function. That's super strange.
This should be working. Like, what?
Okay, so I'm not sure what happened
here. But yeah, you can actually see that we logged, for example, data ID. The previous value was no. Now it's the value that we provided, so no problem. And whenever we want to do this, whenever we increment the counter, we add another component, and we're going to see that we're changing the value here again. And yeah, this is for the other component though. If we want to change for the first one, we have to maintain a list with all the components. But anyways, this is the way that you can actually get notified whenever an attribute changes. So the thing here is that the attributes can only be strings. So whenever you if you want to put a complex object, you cannot put it with set attribute. What you can do is, for example, say my test dot my complex object equals like an object or something like that. And this is a way that you can actually pass a more complicated object to your component and use it inside, for example, with this property. And this is something that lit HTML will help us, because it has these property bindings that are very similar to what we have in React and Angular. So yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so one other thing left, I think, is to see how we can actually dispatch custom events. For example, I want here, whenever the posts are ready, to dispatch a custom event to my parent component. This is the app component, so let's see how we can actually do this. So here, whenever the posts are ready and displayed, I want to say this dot dispatch event, I think. Let's see if this was the thing, dispatch event.
Dispatch event.
Okay, dispatch event. Here I'm going to say new custom event. And here inside the new custom event, I can say what type it is. For example, loaded. And here I can also provide detail property and hold, for example, all the values. We can say all the posts. Okay, and now how are we going to be listening for this thing? Well, whenever I'm actually going to remove this, whenever we are creating the component, what we want to be doing is also creating an event listener. So here, let's say my test.event listener for our custom event, which is loaded. And we're going to get the event and just log it. And let's see what's going to happen. Hopefully it will work. Okay, increment, and we see our custom event. And inside here, inside the detail, we can actually see all of our posts. And this is the way that we can actually pass data from our child components to our parent components and just do stuff like that. So I think that, is there anything else that we want to see from, like, I don't know, the web components, or this is all? I cannot think of anything else that is left.
I have a question. I mean, like, they are great.
If you have a question, you must first go out, like, join in again. I don't understand.
I think it was working well because I was messing around with the HTML on the page because I didn't like some stuff and I just cut them with whatever. And after that, whenever I click on my mic button, it disconnected me, but whatever. My question is, the web components are great. They seem like the panacea of the web or whatever. When we should start using them, or in what kind of situations? Because I'll tell you why I have some like
No. Okay.
When we should use them, because they're great. So what do you think, guys? I mean, when we should start using them and where they're more important?
So the problem that I see with web components is the shadow DOM. If you want to be supporting older browsers, creating the shadow DOM or just simulating a shadow DOM is really complex. They have this, for example, polyfill for web components for older browsers and stuff like that. But I think that this is the main issue currently. If you want to be supporting, for example, Internet Explorer, probably web components is going to be creating an application with web components is not going to be very nice and easy. But if you're targeting, for example, the newer browsers, I think web components is really cool. I mean, I really like that I don't have this extra complexity that comes from other frameworks. I mean, if I'm creating a simple application, I'm really going to go with web components instead of, for example, I'll go with web components instead of creating a big Angular application and just doing all this compiling and stuff like that. I really like that we're coming back to the times when we just put our code inside the browser, inside the text editor. I'm clicking refresh and I can actually just see everything happening instead of waiting for everything to compile and all the files to get downloaded and stuff like that. I mean, not that we're not going to do this, I mean, but I feel like it's a little bit faster. I don't know. I mean, next time, whenever we start configuring, for example, our web components with TypeScript, but to use the decorators and stuff like that, we're going to be having the same issue. But if we're just doing it like this, it's really cool. I really love it.
I agree with you because it's a quick and easy, lightweight, out of the box solution, which doesn't require anything else.
Yeah.
So for something simple, it's just great.
By the way, I have an idea that I mean, I have this project request that we have to do, and I think of using web components for developing it, and I think that it will give us a lot of knowledge using web components in production. So we might start using them very soon for development. So it's going to be very exciting. Okay, Aleksander disconnect, so he has a question probably.
Try. Can you add me again?
Yep. Backstage. Yeah.
All right. So this was like some kind of info from the inside the kitchen. We were working together. So yeah.
Yeah, we were thinking to say, okay, so Harry is in New York, Aleksander is like in San Francisco, but we're actually in the same room. But yeah, that's fun.
But not about, yeah, sorry. All right, about my thoughts about the web components, they are very powerful tool to shoot yourself in the leg. For example, if you're doing like something like enterprise-grade application, and you're like, all right, the web components are the perfect solution for us, and whatever. But you're starting to implement your own custom buttons, custom headers, whatever you need, and at some point, you figure out that you're not that accessible to all the people out there. What I mean here is like when you use the native HTML elements like buttons. Let's say, for example, a button. The button comes out of the box with like on space click or enter click. It does stuff. I mean, it has like built-in. All right, I saw that finger.
But there is one other thing that I actually forgot. Now I remembered. You can actually extend different types of elements. For example, if you're creating a button, you can say, okay, I want to extend an HTML button, and you inherit all of this out of the box. So it's really cool.
I did not know that.
Okay,
like that's great. All right.
The more you know, the more you know.
Yeah. Should we do some picks or something, because we are nearing the 90 minutes?
Yeah, I think what I want to just mention are a few libraries for creating web components. Of course, one is Polymer, which is the one that which is developed from Google. Another one, how was it called? This one developed by Ionic. It was Stencil or something like that. Yeah, so Stencil is another one. Stencil, actually, I think from what I've seen in the past, Stencil.js is the one that it's more used. I think the most used library for developing web components. Even in Ionic, from what I know, all of the elements currently are web components, which is something really cool. So yeah, Stencil is really nice. And of course, Angular Elements. Angular Elements is for Angular. And what else? There is like this really cool site web components everywhere that you can actually see how the different frameworks are doing if they are supporting web components. For example, we see here that Angular Elements, Angular 8 is really good, Angular.js as well. And we can see the other libraries, Hyper HTML, Lit Element. Lit Element is something really cool. It basically uses Lit HTML, and you can actually use you can extend different elements, and you have the rendering out of the box. You have this render method. You can actually put your Lit HTML template inside, and it has really nice functionality. It's kind of like something bigger than Lit HTML, so it's something that's worth checking. So yeah, we have Preact here. Preact is supporting web components. React, not exactly. React, from what I understand, they don't have any. They have a plan for custom elements. Okay, we're going to see. I mean, they haven't focused on web components at all, but it's good that they're working. Skate is really nice. Stencil, and yeah, you can check it out. Vue is also supporting, which is really cool. The other problem, by the way, with web components is if you want to do server-side rendering, because creating inside the server environment, we don't have a document. Creating a shadow root is really complex. And another problem is how this shadow DOM is going to be transferred to the browser and hydrated and stuff like that. So this is another interesting topic, but Skate.js, the one that we saw here, I think, or no, has like an option for server-side rendering with web components. I haven't used it, but still, I mean, it's worth checking out. We're not, probably, maybe, why not? Maybe in a future episode, we can do server-side rendering with web components. Why not? I mean, we're open to just doing everything. So if you even have any requests for a show or something, you can contact us. By the way, I just want to quickly say that we have our commit.js web page. Here we have 6 likes, and we also have this community called commit.js. So whenever you have any questions or you want to see something in our episodes, you can join this community, and we can share links and stuff like that. Just communicate. And one other thing that I want to encourage people to subscribe to our channel, because we want to get at least 100 followers, so we can get a unique ID for our YouTube channel. This is a policy from YouTube that you cannot get a unique URL for a channel if you don't have 100 subscribers. So hopefully we're going to be able to achieve this goal. So these are the picks from me, guys. Your picks were the same.
Kind of about the stencil and the other library. I mean, I think you mentioned it's commit.js, which is doing pretty much the same. And recently, I'm doing something like research on all the state management libraries that are out there, because I was on a conference here in Bulgaria, JS Talks, and one of the lecturers told us that pretty much right now you have to choose between Redux when you're on the React side and NGRX when you're doing something with Angular. And I was like, come on, this is JavaScript. We have the NPM. There must be something else. And one of the libraries that made hit me, it's called NGXF, which is like a no state management library where you literally put everything in the templates and some stuff happens. So you can check it out. I mean, like, don't use it on production, but there are some interesting ideas. And yeah, those are my picks: KJS and NGXF, which is more Angular specific. Sasha?
I don't think I can add anything else that wasn't already mentioned.
Okay. Another thing I want to mention is that we're doing our NG Christmas party next, what is it, Thursday? Yeah, so if you like Angular, if you like pizza, you're welcome to join. I'm going to be presenting, by the way. I'm going to talk about this library that I've developed for Angular. It's called async render. It's on my GitHub page. And by the way, I'm probably going to create a GitHub account for commit.js as well and just put the source code there. But anyways, if you're interested, you're welcome to join us. And yeah, I think that's all. Okay, it was a pleasure with the video. I'm sure that later, like in the next episode, we're going to do much better. But yeah, we're going to be extending this application. I mean, it's pretty simple. You can try creating something similar to this and see how it's working. And in the next episode, we're going to be talking about lit HTML and just refactor our code, maybe introduce Webpack and yeah, stuff like that. Okay, thank you very much and see you soon.
Bye.